wage change too?
Talk about that.
The maximum wage stayed the same, it just went, you got there quicker. So the maximum wage stayed at 67,025 per EA, but instead of getting there after 30 years, you got there after 15 years.
So why do we have a teacher maximum wage of 84,616?
Because that's what the doctorate, you could get it.
Maximum possible.
Maximum possible, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So the 10% is entirely separate from the steps, and that collapsed.
No, it's included in this. The 10%, there was a whole separate salary schedule.
That's where I'm getting.
There was a whole separate salary schedule created for 12, 13, 13, 14, and 14, 15. And then 15, 16, so they must use the 15, 16 salary schedule. But, because they went to the contract. So.
And that's where I was going with the figure, just not adding up with the 10%.
Right.
Okay.
In the next section, overtime paid,
Uh-huh.
what's the definition of overtime?
Anything that was over their regularly scheduled hours that they received time and a half for.
So stipends are not overtime?
Stipends, they didn't, technically, no.
Where are stipends?
They didn't include it in here.
So we need that figure.
Okay.
Stipend would be like a BA1. So for example, if you're a school improvement chair, you might make 3% of BA1, or if you're a teacher and you coach a varsity sport, that would be a 5% or 8% or whatever that is. Is that what you're talking about, that extra stipend fee?
Still a cost on
Sure.
top of these costs.
Yep.
And we need to know what that is. And there's also stipends for people to stay after school and be trained and
Correct.
all of that. So
Yep.
what's the true stipend cost, and however you need to divide that up so that we can understand it.
Then if we go to the next page, they talk about the absence reports and the typical days, or the average days for staff, people are absent.
This was a page we did not get to when we were talking about this before the break. But one thing I know Marianne and I and Penny and Pat are working on, and we'll be working on with TFT, is taking a look at the current teacher absent rate. If you look at about 16 days there a year was at least the average rate used that year. County average was 9.9. And so really looking at what things we can do to bring that absence rate down. We have phenomenal teachers, and one thing I know is this is a simple math equation. The more they're in front of kids, the better. And so 16 point something absence rate a year is all of the absences. So it would be a sick day, it would be a personal day, it would be a day that you're released to go to RESA for PD. So that's total. But then again, the county total was 9.9 because, when you think about it, everybody's a certified educator if you're a teacher, so everybody has to renew their license every so often unless you have the grandfathered license because you've been doing it for a while. But for the most part, school improvement meetings, professional development, those sorts of things are standard. So we really want to take a look at some ways we can actively target reducing that number. Reducing that number, of course, does two things. Improve student achievement, because it would stand to reason the more you have your experts in front of kids, the better the learning environment. It also reduces the sub-costs. If you look at 16 absences a year times the number of teachers times the cost for a sub, we're spending about $740,000 a year in sub-costs. That was a figure that Marianne and I were taking a look at with Cabinet when we first saw this report. And so based on that figure, that's something we can actively target with a reduction goal to try and come down by half or come down by 40%. So really make a legitimate effort at capturing some savings there. 'Cause that's one of those rare win-wins. If we can save money plus benefit students, you know, I know I've received a few, Mary Ann's received more than I have. You know, the last thing you want to do is you don't want to have a sub, you know, or have to combine classes if you can't fill it. So if we're having a challenge filling our subs, attacking this rate gives us benefits in many areas.
And then the last page is just the average cost per rider for special ed and for regular ed for the 14-15.
This kind of gives a nice visual of that bus example we were talking about earlier. When you drop down the average buses per mechanic, you know, if we're 1 mechanic to 9 buses, and the peer average is 1 to 21, it's a simple function of how old the buses are and how much time and effort it takes to keep them running, to keep them on the road. So a real opportunity there for, you know, for investing in our motor pool.
So as you take time to digest the information that we gave, I know that there's some questions that you had that I'm going to bring back to the Finance Committee, which is next Monday at 4:30, to talk about the caseloads for special ed positions, to talk about the communication costs and what that includes, also to pull the stipend cost and what that includes and how that relates. And if there's other things that you would like me to pull to that, I'm more than happy to do that as well. And again, I know it's a lot to process and a lot to go over, and I'm hoping that we went over it a little bit slower today to get some of the questions answered.
So how are we in line with our DEP
We don't have a DEP.
Early warning.
for the end of this year?
We don't have a DEP any longer.
Does it look like we're going to end this year in deficit?
As of right now, no.
So,
I'm working on redoing a new budget that should come forward sometime towards the end of February, because there's some things that, you know, changed and things like that. And definitely with the grants and budgets coming in. So hopefully towards the end of February, I'll have a new budget to present to the board end of February, beginning March, definitely before spring break. To know, so that you all know where we're at for the end of the year. Or where we're at that time.
so sorry about stepping in. So let me ask a different question. Are there any activities or actions that we need to take since we are still in early warning?
Well, there's always activities and actions that we can look at to take to discuss for future.
I just meant requirements from the state. Sorry.
Oh, no. We're in compliance with everything in the state.
Okay, I know some of the early warning legislation was not necessarily 100% clear on that last year.
They've actually, right now, the state has said, because we've made drastic changes and things like that, that we're really no longer, and I think it's been in, I put it in the Friday update, we're no longer in early warning, even though we don't have the 5%, because they say we're on the upswing, but we're still at 5%, so therefore, next year they can put us back into early warning. So, but
In
because,
theory, I'd like to operate as if we still are, but that's.
I agree.
Yeah,
That's frankly where I'm at still.
and I agree with that, but if I said we're in early warning and the state says, no,
That's
we're not,
Understood.
so I still think we need 5% to get to, we're not there, we're at the end of the year, if everything goes well, we'll have about 1.2 million, so we'll be at about 2% roughly.
I would say that we don't necessarily have a roadmap on how to get to the 5%.
Not yet, no. And especially with things that we don't know what's gonna happen next year, different increases, if we lose another, God forbid, or anybody, things happen, we lose another 300 kids, then that's $2.4 million. Okay, then all of a sudden that deficit's gone and we're back on hold.
And this is William's earlier point. There's a number of lists, the plans and maintenance
delayed.
The delayed, thank you.
Maintenance, transportation, now we should add curriculum and techno.
And we are
Things
working,
hanging overhead.
right, and we are working on February 1st. We will have the bond proceeds, so we'll be able to start attacking the list after February 1st.